And thus the third age of Middle Earth began, and history became legend, legend became myth, and some things that should not have been forgotten were lost. Guys, we're here at the studios at CTV on a soundstage. We've actually put the lipstick on the pig, and we're here to do a Lost Civilization show.
We just didn't put chapstick on her.
You know, she had all the time in the world, I'm just saying.
What a reference to make.
I'm so excited to be here. We're actually on a television soundstage. And like I said, it's, putting lipstick on the pig. But hey, we're here. They let us in the door. They'll be sorry, but they let us in. And we're here to talk about lost civilizations, ancient civilizations, and basically the whole thought process behind this episode. I wanted to talk about some of the ancient civilizations that we often wonder about. The Atlanteans. Did aliens actually cohabitate with humans to propel a species forward? Did, all these civilizations that we know very little about, and the whole fact of the evolution of mankind, we have never found the actual missing link. Now, so think about it. We have 3/4 of ape, 3/4 of human, but not the one that's half and half that actually distinguishes where we actually jumped from full ape to full man.
The funny thing is that every time we find something that we think is the missing link, now it's not missing anymore, and there's still a missing link.
Hold on. Who said there had to be one link? Maybe this
Say
is
that 3 times fast.
Nope.
I think because we're still subscribing to the idea that we actually came from apes when we did not.
We did not.
We are divine beings, and we adopted these suits immediately. We never descended from apes.
Oh, wow.
99% of our DNA shared with chimps.
You know who we descended from? The Anunnaki.
Bing, bing, bing.
Actually, we are similar to them, or the ancient Ijiji, which are subsets of the Anunnaki.
And what are the Anunnaki?
Well, the Anunnaki were the ancient Sumerians, just like any other ancient culture. But ancient Sumeria is where, in Mesopotamia, is where they say like civilization began. And the Anunnaki were the ancient civilization that lived in Mesopotamia at the time, along with the ancient Ijiji.
Those people, the Anunnakis, are the ones where we look back at history, and they actually say that some of their kings lived for 200,000 years.
Yes.
These are the same people that I was reading about?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. They could trace the lineage of kings for 500,000 years. And some of them are like 200,000 years.
One generation, not many generations.
No. One guy ruling
one
for
guy.
200,000 years.
I think the whole
Supposedly.
kings list lasted maybe 200, and each one rules maybe 20,000 years or something like that. But these cuneiform tablets were translated, and Oxford University sent, when they found these cuneiform tablets in ancient Iraq, then like the 1840s, the Oxford University sent a research team to go and extract these and decipher them, because they were written in cuneiform or ancient Sumerian, which nobody really knew. It was a phonetic language.
Yeah.
So, but there was a lot of mistranslation with it also. And there's so many that's still there, that they're still not excavated.
The Anunnaki, usually they're depicted with wings, right, I believe?
Well, either wings, or some of them are depicted as serpents. Or they're called, some of them are called serpent gods.
Nice.
Like there's the famous two brothers, Enlil and Enki. And Enlil was supposedly, which is now symbolized as the false god that everybody represents. I'll have a little bit problem with that one. But and Enki was the brother that wanted to help mankind evolve and learn and grow spiritually, knowing that our abilities were far beyond anything else, because we are really divine light beings.
In that same sense, it's very similar to the way the Egyptians, viewed their gods. It was partial human, partial animal. I mean, you had a couple of them that heads of a boar. Yeah.
And you can also attribute to some of those depictions, because they say that ancient Egyptians came from Atlanteans, right? And that's how Atlantis was really, the Atlanteans were really not nice people. I mean, they really relied more on technology, and kind of like, they weren't as spiritually grown as they were technology grown.
Yeah.
And they experimented with people, and they created these half man, half animal. So a lot of those depictions may come from that as well, which actually became their demise.
Right.
But
well, funny that you mentioned that. I believe that the Egyptians didn't build the pyramids or the Sphinx.
Uh-oh.
I really don't believe that. Well, there's actual fact about it, that the Sphinx is built out of one huge rock of limestone. And it's the center showcase right in front of the three main pyramids, and that the erosion around the steps of the Sphinx enclosure
It's from water.
is from water when it only rains 1 inch per year. And the amount of rain erosion around the steps of the Sphinx is roughly about 15,000 years of water erosion.
Maybe
for
even
a place
older.
that only gets 1 inch of rain per year.
But that's now. Was it always
Right.
like that?
But
No.
they dated back, so that
No,
that
that's
just-
why it has to be that old.
it
Right.
predated the original age of
Okay.
the
The
Sphinx.
Sahara was a lush green area at one point, which, if the Sphinx is that old, that's the only way they account for
What
the
if it was something
amount of
else?
water erosion.
What if it was something else and then the Egyptians made it into the
Well, it is
Sphinx?
something else.
Well, it used to be something else.
Yes,
It
we
used
know
to have
that.
a different
Okay.
face.
I don't know that.
It was
Yeah,
originally
the
a
face.
cat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Face was
symbol of a
changed.
cat. It's believed that below the Sphinx there are a hall of records under
Yes.
the paw, and there's a craft down there that we can't see because we are still enmeshed in this 3D world.
Well,
so we're still very
technically, they
dense.
found there's tunnels underneath it.
Yes.
I have video of these guys breaking in and entering into it. They get caught and they get locked up, but they actually get down and it goes into two different places.
Yeah.
They were doing excavation around this.
But
And-
Dr.
so
Robert
they-
Schoch actually discovered
Yes,
that
and he's the one I'm quoting. Dr. Robert Schoch is the one I'm quoting
Yeah.
for the water erosion.
he also discovered outside of the Great Pyramid of Giza
Uh-huh.
the original entrance,
Mm-hmm.
the I forget what you call it, but it's the original entrance to the Pyramid of Giza.
Yeah.
Right before going to the King's Chamber, there are symbols on the opening there, and these symbols were ancient phonetic language,
Mm-hmm.
and they attributed that to ancient Atlantean. It's not hieroglyphics.
Well, the funny thing is that in the Sphinx, all the pyramids, there is not one hieroglyph anywhere. They have
What?
They have graffiti of later on people inscribing, and that's the case with a lot of the statues as well. It's all added on, which basically called graffiti. So if I put up a wall and 25 years later some kid sprays paints on it, well, that's not part of the wall. It's graffiti.
Right.
And that's basically what happened in a lot of the pyramids. There's no actual hieroglyphs in the pyramids or in the Sphinx. It was what little bit is there is attributed to graffiti hundreds, if not thousands of years
Well,
later.
that's with the pyramid. But if you
Yeah.
go now, the hieroglyphics and the symbols were more in the temples that were nearby.
Yes. Oh,
so you have the
temples
Temple
are-
of Dendera.
are riddled with, yeah. And so were every single tomb. Now, here's my biggest thing about the pyramids. They're called tombs. They are not tombs.
They're not tombs.
They're not.
They're power
absolutely
plants.
not. Every single tomb that they found, a sarcophagus with a mummy of a king or anybody,
Mm-hmm.
is littered. Every square inch is filled with hieroglyphs and painted.
Yeah.
There's none of that in the pyramids
And
at
they
all.
are not in the pyramids.
Yeah, at all, zero. And
in
the funny
pyramids, if you go into the King's Chamber, in the King's Chamber in the Pyramid of Giza, the Great Pyramid,
Mm-hmm.
you go into the King's Chamber, it's one big open room, and there's one sarcophagus, which they call
They
sarcophagi,
call it a sarcophagus.
in the middle of the
Yes.
room. It looks like
It's
a big
not.
coffin.
It's not.
It's
Yeah.
not. And actually, the dimensions of that sarcophagi is actual dimensions of the Ark of the Covenant. The same cubic meters in the
Mm. Yeah,
Ark of
yeah,
the Covenant.
yeah.
It also, that whole room has resonance. So if you go
Yes.
in there and you speak,
Yes.
it's if you say something, it's almost like there's 20 people saying the same thing at the same time.
It resonates a certain frequency that they think they were used either something hydro or something electrical.
Yeah, there was definitely
Yeah.
sound was definitely attributed to whether it was initiation or rising spiritually, growing spiritually. There's something in there, and it was
Yeah.
said that people who lay in that sarcophagi who have spent the night in there, they have out of body experiences because of the resonance in the room. There's also on the right side of the wall in that room, the King's Chamber, there is a very faint painting of the Apis bull, which is very
Okay,
famous in
yeah,
ancient Egypt.
yep.
The Apis bull with the calf inside the Apis bull, which represents the goddess Hathor or the queen
Yeah.
pharaoh Hathor.
Yes.
And because she's considered the mother of the Apis bull, which is why her depiction has the cow ears.
Yeah.
And now she's the mother, and the bull represents the cow and gives the milk and saves
She's kind of like the goddess of love and stuff like that.
And there's a whole temple.
Isn't she the mother to Osiris or something to that effect as well? There's a lot of different things that go on with some of this.
She's considered the mother of the Apis bull.
Yeah.
And there's a whole temple dedicated to just her, Hathor,
Yeah.
which is in Dendera, which Napoleon's troops had discovered, and they discovered Hathor's temple, and they realized that there were these depictions of Hathor, but 7 of her, which represented the 7 sisters, and the 7 sisters represent a constellation, and which is said to come. And there's like a whole belief with that. The 7 sisters with the 7 goddesses, and
also before we get too far off into Hathor, sticking back to the actual Sphinx. Now that's facing, what's the constellation?
Sirius.
No, but if it was built for what it is, which is a lion, right, or a cat, what is the constellation Leo, right? Leo, it would have been facing directly into Leo 15,000 years ago. Why would you build something facing that constellation or something representing the cat and not have it facing the constellation? So in other words, they think it may be 15,000 years old.
I think it's even older.
Yeah, could be. And do you guys know that, that the pyramids in Egypt, you know how many are at Giza? Anybody know?
Isn't it 7?
Oh, you heard me talk? It's not 7, no.
It's not 7.
No.
I was guessing.
It's 9.
Okay.
It's 9. Everybody knows the 3 main pyramids. Well, there's 3 smaller pyramids they attribute as the Queen's pyramids. But, never found a body in any of these. Never. But there's actually 9 at the main plateau at Giza. And do you know that the biggest pyramid in the world is nowhere near the Middle East? It's in Mexico.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, you know that?
I've seen that, yes.
It's called Cholula. And they didn't even know it was there, but in the 1500s, they built a church on top of a hill. And later found out that the hill they built the church on, that's still basically being used today, is a giant pyramid that the Mexicans built, or the
that's the hot sauce
maybe
factory,
the
right?
it's the hot sauce. Yeah,
At that point in time, it would have been the
Olmecs.
Aztecs.
Huh?
At that point in time, it would have been the Aztecs.
Or the Olmecs. It was right around there, but because the pyramid was lost for so long, and it's 3 times wider at the base than any of the pyramids, the Great Pyramid in Egypt. So it's one of the largest. It's not as tall, but it's widest.
Isn't
And
it
it's
more
just
square, though? It's not shaped the same.
Oh,
It is
no,
a
it's pyramid. It's pyramid,
It's-
and it's just 3 times wider at the bottom. And there's like 5 miles of tunnels in it, by the way. So just a little, fun facts about,
Grab the cameras, let's go.
where the stuff,
I'm ready.
what people think that pyramids are all in Egypt. But guess what? Egypt doesn't even have half as many pyramids as the Sudan. And most people think pyramids are in Egypt, but if you go south of Egypt into Sudan, there's at least twice as many pyramids in Sudan than there is in Egypt. And most people don't know that. They're not as exquisite, and they're not as nicely done. And I think it was them, copying what they saw in Egypt, or at least the main pyramids. Everybody tried to copy. If you look
I
at
think
the
the
Ben
main
pyramid,
pyramids are in Antarctica. Well, the main ones were the whole idea of building of the pyramids. I think is because it represents geometry and the octahedron. And if you look at octahedron, you have the pyramid on the ground, and then you have the part
Opposite,
underneath.
yeah.
And and that represents a natural shape and form of crystals.
Yes.
And most
Nice.
hematite and
I never thought of
magnetite.
that. That's cool. Yeah.
Which hematite and magnetite we have in our brains
Mm-hmm.
naturally. So I think they were built and use red granite, which has quartz in the red granite.
Yeah, that's part of the resonance inside the pyramids.
Right. So
from
what
that type of
would be the
stone.
reasoning to do that then, other than to help mankind or us remember who we really are, to help us separate from this physical body?
I think they were used for purposes of power, like electric power and stuff like that.
That too.
Because of the chambers that are inside of it, it makes really no sense how they're set up as to, like, there's a doorway. There's not really like a doorway and you walk in and there's this. No, there's chambers blocked off from other parts, and it just looks like something that they would either use hydroelectric water or something to get this, because the water used to come right up to the pyramids. Nobody really realizes that today. Now they're a half mile to a mile away.
And the whole reason for the
Yeah.
obelisk as well. The obelisk was built on the way they would do it would be water underneath it, on
Yeah.
top with metal on the bottom.
They don't think that they're shaped like that, but they do know that the underneath of the bent pyramid is twice as old as the top. And that goes along with what I'm saying, where it was already there. A lot of these structures were there, the pyramids, everything was there, and the Egyptians just moved in and just maybe built upon them, restored some of them, and you don't see anything about the pyramids, who built them, until like thousands of years later. It's a reference in the Egyptian work, but nothing about when they were being built. And if Khufu and Khafre built them, they were laying a brick every 5 minutes
I don't think they built them.
for 80 years straight. Every 5 minutes, cut, transported, laid, and put in place every 5 minutes for 80 straight years to build two of the three pyramids, because the grandson built the third one, and the Sphinx. And 80% of what you see at Giza was supposedly built in 75 years. And that's to me, that's impossible.
I think it was
with the
there
technology
already.
at the time.
It was there already. It's just like the Sphinx. How
Yeah.
they put a different face on the Sphinx
Yeah.
and said, "Okay, this
This
is
is
mine."
ours. Yeah.
Right. I think they did the
Yeah.
same thing with the pyramids.
And
They
every
didn't-
other pyramid around is either falling apart or not even a third as nice as the three main. And that's why I think they tried to copy and they couldn't. And nobody else in the world actually did.
I think it's also different levels for initiation, like the King's Chamber. I think the King's Chamber was definitely used. I mean, everything was geometry. I mean, if you
Yeah.
count, I think you could fit exactly 137 sarcophagi in the King's Chamber, that size sarcophagi. And that 137 is some kind of resonance, equals a resonance with it. So there's definitely like geometry and sound that was used with that, but I think a
Could
lot
be,
of it had
yeah,
to do with
yeah.
initiation, because don't forget, the mystery schools were famous back then. Like, so you had to go through this initiation. All the depictions in Dendera and Hathor's temple, they had these different depictions of people being born again out of these, what they call a bulb.
Yeah.
Or it looked like a bulb.
Okay.
And they used these symbols, the jet and the ankh.
Yeah.
And these things were probably electrical type of like a tuning fork or something.
You've seen the photo,
Yeah, that's what I'm talking
and
about.
they attribute it to a lily because of the lilies.
Well,
there's
I'll
a
tell you, that
design
lily
on it.
is a blue
Yeah.
lotus. And
Yes,
the blue
yes.
lotus was a poison that they gave to initiates.
I thought it was black, but yeah, okay.
And the blue lotus is a hallucinogenic. It's
Yeah.
like ayahuasca, right?
Yeah.
So people do ayahuasca. and they go on
DMT,
this journey.
baby! I've actually
that
never
was the
done it. I
point.
just.
And
we've
then
just
you
been talking
ingest
about it.
that poison, and then they put you in this dark chamber in
Mm-hmm.
the temple, where you go through this journey, and it's almost like going through a death,
Yeah.
right? And you're kind of separating
And
from
you're reborn.
your exactly.
Yeah.
Then they bring you to another
Yeah.
chamber where you now see the light of the equinox coming in, and you're reborn.
Mm-hmm.
So they definitely used the blue lotus for that, and that light bulb, that symbol, actually was inside of there was this snake.
Yes,
Right?
the snake, yes,
serpent.
yeah.
And the serpent represents wisdom and rebirth and regeneration.
Well, some people say it actually represents an actual light bulb, and that the pyramids were somehow gaining power some way. If you ever look at the works of Tesla, he swore
Right.
that there was a way to transport energy across huge distances around the planet.
Right. But if you look at the picture, the light bulb it's huge in
Yes,
size.
yes,
And
yeah.
inside you see the snake, the coil
Yes,
that's inside.
yeah, which is the filament,
Right.
supposedly, yes.
And then why would they depict it as a snake? And then underneath that
Well-
light bulb, you see a person holding it.
You see, here's the yeah, exactly. There's a person like this,
Right. And
Well,
then you have the
if you look at it from
ruas.
a vantage point of people who drew what they saw and didn't understand what it represented, that's where you get the lotus part, the snake
See,
part.
I think they
and the
understood
people
it.
holding it were the gods. And then the people underneath it were just the regular people.
See, I don't think they painted.
Supposedly.
I don't think they did their art in literal sense.
Yeah.
They did their
Oh,
art
yeah,
in
I'm just guessing,
symbolisms.
basically. I'm guessing.
And everything to them, like, it's the
Always.
same thing with doing pictures of the Apis bull. or anything like that. I think everything was a symbol of, like, the calf inside the Apis bull meant you had to go in a death and sacrifice yourself back to the mother in order to be reborn again.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the symbol in the painting that's in the king's chamber on the wall. And I think it was Da Vinci, The Last Supper, his painting, which they understood so much. And he was in one of the mystery schools, wasn't he, Da Vinci?
Yeah.
And he made his paintings. There was all kinds of symbolism, and everything was
Yeah,
symbolism.
everything was,
And
yeah.
you had to be an initiate, or you had to be in that sect or in that
Yeah,
circle
to
to
learn more about
understand,
it, yeah.
because it had to be kept secret. Because otherwise, if that knowledge got out to the wrong people, they can control they can hijack your consciousness if they had that kind of power.
Yeah.
So it was really held secret, all that knowledge. In the Last Supper, that painting, if you look on the right side of the painting, on one of the tapestries is the Apis bull with the calf
Oh,
inside.
yeah? I never even knew that. Yeah. Awesome. And then, the representation through all the art and, the Renaissance, all that, that's great. But let's come back to the lost civilizations and stuff like that, where we don't really know a whole lot about these places and what transpired to us to lose all these civilizations just to disappear.
Well, I think these civilizations were us, and we just lost our memory.
Well,
Eridu.
In
Mesopotamia.
I have a, yeah.
It's where the Anunnaki
Write it
had
down.
lived.
I
And
think it's actually 6.
in Eridu
Seven.
is thousands and thousands. It's unbelievable. It's almost like the cradle of civilization in ancient Iraq.
Yeah.
And
It's
I
right
think it
between
was
the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers.
Right.
It's right
And
where most of civilization
the ancient city of Nineveh
Uh-huh.
was destroyed.
Here's what I'm gonna bring into that though. You ever hear of anything called the Younger Dryas event? Okay, so what the Younger Dryas basically was, it was a transition from the last glacial period into the modern times. So do you guys know that right now where we are on Staten Island, we would be underneath a mile or 2 miles of ice if we went back 15,000 years?
Yeah.
Up to 2 miles of ice over our heads.
That would feel good around about that.
So, well, the Younger Dryas is something that's wrapped between what's called meltwater pulse 1A and meltwater pulse 1B. Basically, what they're thinking, somehow the ice melted really quick. Ice melt, water rise, where people lived, gone. So it kind of makes sense. They don't know why the ice melted so quickly. Some people are hypothesizing that there was an asteroid strike or a comet strike into the actual ice glaciers, to the ice sheets that were over North America. Caused them to melt in a heartbeat, and they have the scarred land all over the West Coast, especially in Oregon and Washington State, to prove that these floods took place. Massive floods, miles deep, miles wide. The ice disappeared quickly, and the seas rose 400 feet. And what does that do to all the coast and all the cities on the coast? Where are you 12,000 years ago? Your culture is based on the coast where you can fish, you can come in to hunt. All those cultures wiped out from these flash floods that basically happened overnight. Flash in the sky from the comet or the asteroid strikes the ice, melts it, waters rise, you are done. You have no recourse but to just sit there and drown. Now, they know this happened for a fact. They know that the waters rose. They know that the ice melted very quickly. They don't have the comet or the asteroid to proof. So they don't know anything about that. But they know the melt happened and the water rose quickly. Here's where it gets funny. Because of this rise in sea levels, you lose a lot of the civilizations. Were some smart enough to see it coming? Maybe it was multiple comet strikes or asteroid strikes where you had a large comet or planetary body coming, breaking up, hitting. Okay, so water rose 25 feet in 3 months. Bigger one coming. Here comes 85 feet, and as the third or fourth one hit, then it's boom, 400. So we don't know how it happened. We're not sure if that's even the way it happened, but we know something caused all that water to rise and melt. So what I propose to you, ladies and gentlemen, and I will gladly take all the credit and the reward that goes with it, but ladies and gentlemen, I have found Atlantis, and I have the proof right here, and I am going to show every one of you. We'll start with this one, right there. Here you are.
Oh, come on.
Here you are.
This
You
is.
see what this is?
Yes.
Do you know what this
Yeah,
is?
I do. I
Yeah.
do.
Take that. Okay.
Yes.
So then, you know what this is, right?
yes.
You're looking at the reshot structure, which is called the Eye of Sahara, which was discovered in the 60s
Right.
in
And they-
Mauritania off the western end of Africa.
But I think the.
Now, what you're looking at here is an artist rendition of Atlantis, right? Take a look at that, please.
Yes.
That's basically
But I
the
think
scope of Atlantis, right? Right?
Yes.
Yes or no? Yes?
It
Okay.
looks like it, yes.
Here's the two overlaid. Here you go.
Yes.
Here's the two overlaid.
Wow, he did his homework, guys.
Here is the side view
Okay.
of what Atlantis would look like.
But
This is supposed to be
also-
ready for January, let's remember.
Now, if you would like to hand those back and let me show these two gentlemen here.
I think, though,
and get their idea.
geographically, it still didn't make sense because
Why?
of what Plato's representation,
It was
that
to
it's
the
beyond the
west
Pillars
of
of
the Pillars of
Hercules,
Hercules.
and it
Guess
didn't
what?
match up with
It
that.
is to the west of the Pillars of Hercules. It's just west and south. Now, Plato, okay? Plato was a philosopher. We all know this. He's a very famous guy, born in the 5th century BC. And he was a student of Socrates, and later he taught Aristotle. Very famous guy, well documented, a lot of his works. He wrote the books, The Critias and the Timaeus, which is where he talks about Atlantis. And he
Yes.
gives very good description
Yes.
of what he knows about Atlantis that was handed down
Right.
from his uncle, they surmise, Solon, who actually visited Egypt, went to the temple of Sais. Thank you. And the priest, the high priest, described to him what was actually written in the hieroglyphs on the wall, which was the story of Atlantis and the water rising and the culture leaving
Right.
from there and moving into the border parts of
But
Egypt.
don't forget, Plato wrote these accounts, and this was after the destruction of Atlantis already.
Yes.
It's almost like,
Yes.
I mean, yes, and I get that, but it's almost like the book of Mark or Luke, which is written 200 years after the death of Jesus.
And by several different people, by the way.
Right.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I get Plato has from Solon and everything.
Yeah.
But again, he wrote all this after the destruction
Sure.
of Atlantis.
And granted, and that's why I think that that's where they're missing the actual parts where, now you see the blue? That's salt water. That's salt residue from salt water. Water flowed through there. It was actually, and in the broader scope, the way he describes it is the mountains to the north of it. And there are the mountains, plains to the west and east. And there they are. And it's exactly how he described, except it's not out into the Atlantic through the pillars. It's just west and south of there. Now, where he describes it, though, they actually find stuff. And they find proof of civilization past the
Well,
Pillars
don't
of Hercules.
forget, there's also
there is a
ancient
landmass
Lemuria.
there that is approximately 500 or 400 feet deep of a shelf, a continental shelf, where you go back 10, 12,000 years ago, it was actually at the surface.
Yeah, but
And there
here's
was
the
people
thing.
living there.
But there, in all of Mesopotamia, where the ancient Anunnaki
Mm-hmm.
were, there were civilizations that were like the city of Eridu
Mm-hmm.
or Nineveh, which was destroyed and had the library. And I got the name of it. The Royal.
Ashurbanipal.
That. Thank you.
And all of these things, guess what, occurred at the same time span.
There's more
12,600 years ago.
information in Mesopotamia that
Mm-hmm.
about our origins, about our real innate abilities as
Mm-hmm.
spiritual human beings. Not even, I want to use the word human beings. We're spirit beings.
Okay.
And there's more information in Mesopotamia
Yeah.
to be found and had. I mean, was it near Nineveh in 2003? American troops in ancient Iraq
Mm-hmm.
were part of with all the cuneiform tablets and all. They invaded it, and the troops they looted the place.
Oh, the Iraqis destroyed 90%
No.
of it.
American troops.
We have this on video.
In 2003, American troops went
Yeah.
in there and helped destroy half that city.
Well, I got video
Now
proving
today-
the other side of it.
Now
I have
today,
video from that
ISIS
time.
is destroying
Yeah,
all the
but
history.
Even back then, they had them on
they-
video
they-
destroying the Anunnaki
Yeah.
statues.
And think about this: no one is doing anything about it.
Yeah, it sucks. It's horrible.
And why? Why? They just abandoned. Like Oxford University was in Iraq in the 1800s doing studies and everything, and they just got out of there.
Yeah.
Why? There is in Eridu alone. There's in that library. There's cuneiform tablets all over with information all over it, and they are not excavating it. They're
Yeah.
not investigating it. Why? What is being
Well, let's
hidden
go.
there?
Pack your bags and let's go. I'm there.
Something's
I'm
being
there.
hidden that
So-
they don't want us to know.
Back to the 1200s and 800 time frame, when supposedly if there was an Atlantis, which, by the way, I just discovered. Thank you.
I think
Thank
somebody
you.
That's where
do
that
that,
200,000 a
but-
year came
Now,
from.
back
you
at
go.
that time frame, we see a mass flooding. Ice caps melting, mass floods occurring all over the globe. All of a sudden, civilization starts to arise up in Turkey, in a place called Göbekli Tepe.
Göbekli Tepe.
And Kalahan Tepe.
Yep.
All from the 12,000 year mark. All of a sudden.
I think it's
these-
older than that.
Well,
it's older than that.
the funny thing is that they found it 12,000 years up to like 3,000 years. And the closer they get to our time frame, the worse condition, the worse architecture, the worst like just construction methods. It seemed really strange that the ones that they found so far that are the oldest had the best architecture, the best construction methods, and were just preserved better than the ones that from 2,000 years ago. Because when you get dispersed as a civilization and, oh shit, I can't find my flashlight, it was lost in the flood, or my compass, or my level, and all of a sudden, and you start branching downward from history where, okay, all the knowledge is here 12,800 years ago, and then all of a sudden this flood happens, and then the knowledge is kind of passed down, but none of the technology is. And then you have to, you being so close to that time frame, you have a lot of that knowledge, maybe not the technology, but the knowledge. And as you start to come closer to our time frame, the knowledge and technology just gets lost. And as you get closer to 2,000 years ago, as opposed to 12,000 years ago, they're making piles of crap compared to 12,000 years ago, which were megalithic monuments.
Maybe
And
they
it's-
purposely, maybe higher beings purposely dumbed us down. Because if you look, every time there's a civilization that is spiritually more powerful than we are now, technology more powerful, what happens? There's a flood. And with every flood, think about it. Look across every religion, there's a flood. Atlantis.
Well, that's
Noah's, but the thing is
that
because
they
we
all
don't get
tie
to
into
Right.
one
Right,
flood.
exactly.
It's one
The
flood.
funny
It's
thing
one
is it's
flood.
all the
but I think
exact
it's
same time.
because we don't,
Yeah.
in the human form, like Atlantis was flooded. Why? Because they stepped away from their spirituality. And I think that's a big part of the problem.
That's the way to justify it to the
But
to
if
the
you're
masses,
supposed to-
and I think that's what
I don't think
Plato
we
tried to
didn't.
do.
I don't think we just didn't get the information passed down because of the flood. I think we were purposely dumbed down to and made more dense to forget who we
For
are.
purpose. What is that? What does that do? Why dumb down?
No, I know you
people?
said that, but
No, but what I'm thinking is
That-
because you'll work harder to get there. When you're seeking information, you're going to work
Yeah,
harder.
but those
Or
people
not
worked hard to
realize-
get where they were.
It's,
No.
see,
to
the
lose
whole
it.
thing is, back in ancient times, and I think it's a lot older than we're even giving it credit for.
Absolutely.
If you look at the symbols and the things that they used, and I'm going to go back to the Ankh or the Jed or the Ruaz. They were like tuning forks, and they showed these with the Blue Lotus, and
Yeah.
they showed people moving into like interdimension movement. It's almost like that tuning fork or Ruaz, which you see in ancient Egyptian paintings and symbolism, was used to possibly move from one planet to another. You were able to, as long as your frequency was high enough to match that of that Ruaz, then it matched you, and you were able to transport.
Stargate.
Exactly.
You're able to ascend to a higher
It
plane.
was the
Exactly.
key, and
Stargate.
that's why
Again.
the key is such a sacred symbol to many cultures because that was the key that got you through that Stargate. As long as your vibration matched. But now here's the thing: nobody knows how to raise their vibration like that anymore.
Yeah.
We forgot that. And that's the whole thing. We have to remember that. And that's what all of these paintings and these depictions are, I think, to it was that these people were able to do this, and somewhere along the line, somebody was too powerful and they wanted all the power. They didn't want people remembering this, that we are able to star travel. We are able to do these things because we have that ability.
Yeah.
If you think about when people talk about near-death experiences, and they talk about, till today we're trying to separate our ego, that we call it, or ourselves, or we have out-of-body experiences, right? How many people talk about that? OBEs.
Yeah.
So we have the ability. It's just that we don't know how to control it. And I think that was had a lot to do with it. And I think in ancient Mesopotamia, where the Anunnaki were, I think they had that technology. And somewhere that's where it got lost. That's where it was either dumbed down or was, oh, no, this is too powerful. We can't let them know this. Something happened there.
I don't see it quite like you do, and nothing wrong with
Because
it.
why aren't we investigating what's going on in Eridu, the city of Eridu? Why is nobody going there and getting those
why
cuneiform
people
tablets?
are dumb today is a whole nother story, I believe. But if you take it for what it is on face value, and that's the way I'm looking to approach it, and I'm not saying your theory on it is wrong by any means. I'm not, because I could be wrong. I don't know, but I just know civilization was at an apex. A catastrophic event happened, and we dropped off the table, and we've been rebuilding ever since. Now, I look at, Joe, you brought your cats? I look at it as something like that. I'm not looking at it as a spiritual thing. I'm looking at it as a quality of life on the planet we're on right now. Mm-hmm. And I think the whole notion of interstellar travel through however means without a vehicle or existing on a higher plane, I think that's stuff that's in our future possibly. I don't think that stuff was in our past. And if there were beings that were here amongst us that help us jump to certain periods of time where, through methods of construction or knowledge and stuff like that, I don't think we attained that stuff. I think it's something that we're still should shoot for, but I do believe they set us on the right path, and then every once in a while we, destroy our neighbors, for...
I still think there's no
Because
explanation.
they look like us, but they don't think like us. And then we're warring factions, and we're destroying knowledge that's out there. I don't think 20,000 years ago we were traveling to the stars with our minds.
Well,
I don't think
if you look
that's
at
the case whatsoever.
Dendera,
I
the
think
Temple
if there
of
was higher
Dendera.
beings, I think there was higher beings. They wanted us to understand the enjoyment of life as we know it right now. Why give the kid the cell phone before he has to play one?
Because
Why give the 4-year-old a real cell phone instead of the Fisher-Price cell phone that makes no? You give him the Fisher-Price one
because the
first.
4-year-old really knows how to work the real cell phone because
does
it's
not.
innate in their DNA.
No.
And if you look at
I've
there
had
are
4-year-olds. No,
there
they don't.
are
They don't.
what we
Push
use
the button,
as
look
an
at the
analogy.
light. Push the button, look at the light. That's it.
Okay, so
and
try to
as a
explain
species,
the
you have to
zodiac.
see us the same way as
Joe,
an evolution
shut up.
of a child.
The zodiac
He's the
in
4-year-old.
Dendera, in
Absolutely.
Hathor's temple, there is in one of the crypts. There's 12 sealed off crypts. One of them was accessed, and in that crypt there was a painting, and it's called Dendera Zodiac. And on that zodiac is the 12 zodiac symbols, the constellations, and there's a 13th one which represents the serpent at the center. At the center is the bull, the apex bull, and
Okay.
pointing to a specific date, which signifies when it was built, which is a lot older than we're even thinking.
Okay.
Much older.
No, there's nothing
But-
wrong with that. I agree
and
with stuff like
the
that.
symbols that are there, and the symbolism looks like, it just looks, and that's where actually that picture is. That painting with the big light bulb.
I agree with this. I just don't agree with we were astroplaning across the universe because these great beings wanted us to before we even knew how to walk. That's the only part I have an issue with. That's the only one. I believe that we had technology that put us here, and all of a sudden we ended up
you're
here.
looking at it-
and we're only back to here now.
We're not
I
looking
believe
at
that.
it like you.
I don't think we had
if
cell
you
phones,
look at,
but
forget technology.
I believe
and
we
that's what
had the understanding to move large objects and stuff like that. I believe.
we do now. With Edward Lee, he built Coral Castle in Florida.
yes.
And he discovered how the ancient Egyptians did it with sound. Well, that's what he said.
Unfortunately, nobody has proof of that. I know the story, and I want to believe in that. I do. There's no concrete evidence of how he did it. He says he did it.
He'd say that he had some
Yep.
tripod thing, and he would be whistling. He'd work with sound.
Yeah.
And he would be able to. You have to see.
It's still there. It's still there.
Still there in
One
Miami,
man built this whole
Florida.
place.
Coral Castle.
By himself.
Everybody look it up.
Some Jedi stuff right there.
Yeah. So I'd love to know how he did it, and I heard the
But
stories.
it was said that he didn't want to let out that discovery because
See,
it would
here-
get into the wrong
here's-
hands.
This is where
Listen.
you start to lose me on those lines. These great beings wanted us to travel across,
It has nothing to do with
but
technology.
This guy
Joe.
had the knowledge, but
Joe, the whole
that's
point
where I
of
kinda
it
get,
was the evolution of the planet. It was the evolution of how we would be able to raise
so
our vibration.
why are we going to other planets and we haven't even evolved on our planet yet? That's
It's
what I don't understand.
It's when you're at that level.
Is this good
then
enough
you're
fighting?
going.
Yeah.
All
pretty
right.
good.
Sweet.
You haven't screamed yet, but yeah.
No, we don't. Well,
They did say dumbed down, though. That's what we were talking about.
yes.
Right.
And if we were dumbed down, then maybe we would have had that capability back in the day.
Well,
back in the day.
The whole thing
I don't
is, it
know. I
wasn't
don't- I
about the
think personally, I don't
technology.
see it
It
like
was
that.
about the growth of the consciousness, so that you did not need this physical suit. When you have this physical suit, you have need of the cell phone and the car and the spaceship.
I think you're right, but,
But when you
that's the next step
don't-
after this.
But when you,
That's the next step after this. That's there. That's there already.
the whole thing is,
But why do you want the end game
it's not
while
the
you're
end
still
game.
in the playing field?
It's not the
you know?
end game. It's the joining of the end game with the current game. It's realizing that you can, you are a light being.
Enjoy
and you,
now, be here.
It's all just one big game.
It's just
There you go.
it's just so much fun to enjoy now, be here.
No, it's
You're gonna get there eventually.
Joe.
Oh, I'm
No,
speaking
it's
French
like,
and he's speaking
it's like when
Chinese.
you speak about manifesting, Joe.
Huh?
When you speak about manifesting,
Yes.
do you have $300,000 in your hand right now to give each of us? But you
300?
believe it's
It
going
was
to happen.
200, by the way.
Joe,
I was
think
slick.
you're dumbing down the energy. You're
See what I mean?
dumbing down.
But you believe it. You
Joe.
yell at fool all the time.
Yes.
Okay, it's the same concept. If you know that you can manifest
looking
and
to
get to
travel
what
into
you
Star
want,
Wars.
And we
Then
don't
you're-
even know. It's not.
my head hurts.
So the concept here, Joe,
Oh, please, Chris.
is
This
that
is painful.
as you go through life and you gain more knowledge and you learn more things.
Sure.
That's just it.
Awesome.
The older you are, the more you know.
Yes.
This concept is that as you're growing yourself spiritually as well. And the idea is that once you do actually pass on from this,
Yeah.
you're not actually dying. You're
Yeah.
ascending. You're going to a higher level of consciousness,
but the-
which
No,
could
but
potentially
that's not
be.
what
But
she's
the
saying.
idea is
That's not what she's saying,
That's not
Chris.
what I'm saying. The idea is it's okay. What yogis talk about in the ancient Vedic,
Mm-hmm.
right? The Vedic scriptures, ancient Vedas.
From the Indus civilization.
Okay, talked about ancient civilizations, talked that transcending it is transcending death. There is no more death. It is because we've transcended this. So we're still here. We still have our individuality, but we're a higher spiritual being. We've transcended. We've taken on the rainbow body that Padmasambhava had talked about, right?
you.
In the ancient.
You know, and that's all great, and I kind of get what you're saying, but that and 350 still gets me on the bus. So why having that?
350. When's he
What?
taking the bus?
I don't know.
What bus are
Oh,
you
it's
taking?
$3. Sorry, it's still $3. I
Express
figured it
bus.
went up since the last time I
It's
took the bus.
$3. When did it become $3?
Yeah, buses are $3, buddy.
I thought it was $2.
Nope. Buses
why
are
I'm going
$3.
to-
Okay, how about this? So, just getting to that ancient civilizations, ancient cultures
And this was just this. I just
Had-
see it a little different. That's all
had
this was.
different symbols, right?
Yeah.
And that's how they transfer their messages. But they were all the same symbols everywhere. So now I mentioned like the opening of the Great Pyramid
Yeah.
towards the King's Chamber had those symbols, And the symbols represented, they were ancient phonetic symbols, but if you look at them, they looked like ancient Hebrew writing, right? That represented Yahweh or other words. In El Castillo in Spain, there were cave systems and, like, I guess a pyramid, and they found cave paintings and these symbols. There were 32 symbols altogether.
Okay.
And each one was everything you would see today. The Star of David, the cross, the equal sign cross.
Yeah.
All different ones.
Yeah.
32.
But
and
we just regurgitate the same stuff over and over.
yeah, but
Like,
they're all
and-
over the world.
Yeah, I mean,
Those-
not many people know, and I'm sorry to bring this up as this is a really bad reference to it, but because I don't condone anything with a SWAT sticker, please understand me. But a SWAT sticker was a symbolization of peace and love.
And
it's in the
and
Bible.
prosperity.
It's in prosperity. It's in a lot of the 2,000-3,000-year-old books.
And it represents
just happened to be hijacked by a
the
fucking
eternal
nut job.
spiral. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people
absolutely.
don't understand that. A lot of these symbols are just regurgitated
Right.
through history.
Yes.
And a lot of these stories are too, and because I'm starting to find a few stories about a child born of a virgin with the disciples and Son of God kind of complex. Not only once, but Egyptians have a long time ago have the same type of storyline.
Many of them do.
And
a lot of it, I think every culture.
a lot of stuff is just regurgitated. Everybody has the flood.
Well, look at the story
know?
of Gilgamesh, which was
Yeah.
the first translation from one of the cuneiform tablets.
Yeah. Actually, the first translation was a complaint. Somebody carved stones, and they did it wrong, and that's how the Rosetta Stone. That's what the Rosetta Stone is, by the way. Rosetta Stone
Right.
is a complaint in 4 languages, and a tax form at the bottom in 4 different languages to appease the kings of the 4 lands around. And that's how they deciphered all these languages, from a tax form and a complaint form. That's how they deciphered
This hurt to
hieroglyphics.
make.
So,
we're not
so
talking about
they did
hieroglyphics.
hieroglyphics. They did the languages, and that's how they got to understand what hieroglyphics and all these other languages meant. From the languages, the one language on there that they actually knew, which was ancient Greece. That's how they deciphered everything else. It was a tax form and a complaint. And that's the Rosetta Stone, and that's all
I don't
its
know.
glory.
I don't know about that.
I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
either.
I don't
Oh,
know.
yeah.
That's how they.
Listen, all
Google.
I know. Google.
Use
Oh
the-
God, because it's
Can you
Do you,
please
you
use
know
the
you
Google
can put
for
anything
me?
on a .com.
Use the
it's
Google,
on
Brian.
Google. It must
Google.
be true.
You know, Joe, not everything that's online is true.
That's true.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
This is not just online.
Are there real scientists that talked about this, or is this
Bro.
is this like one of those Onion articles that you found?
You can look at the
He
price
actually
of the Rosetta
translated
Stone.
the
It actually is
tablets.
Oh,
his
he
house.
translated the tablets.
Yes.
I get it.
That's
Okay.
he knew.
Okay.
Hieroglyphics is actually not as old as the cuneiform tablets.
Yeah, but they
from ancient
didn't know
Sumeria.
what it was at the time. There was no basis, like cuneiform. At one point, there's no basis for translation, so they have to figure it out. And the Rosetta Stone was the thing that helped them along. That's all.
It's just like with the translation, they believed that Zacharias Sitchin thought he had from the cuneiform tablets that were originally translated from the
Yeah.
Anunnaki,
Yeah.
thinking
You see,
that we
and
were a
this is my
slave
problem,
race.
though.
But it
This
was a
is my problem.
mistranslation.
This is my problem. I give you stuff out of a fucking textbook. She talks about fucking aliens, and you're looking at me like I'm fucking wrong. Really, guys? Come on. Seriously. I'm pulling shit out of a textbook. She's talking about fucking aliens, and everyone, oh, wow, she's fucking so smart. And don't get me wrong, you actually are a very smart person. I'm not bugging on that.
Joe.
I'm just bugging on how they
Joe.
believe the alien shit
His
and not the textbook
translation
shit. That's all I'm bugging out
was
on.
a mistranslation
textbooks.
because
Which
Man writes
translation to
textbooks.
what?
Why would we believe that?
the original thought.
Right, I only believe anything that's written by a woman.
Thank you.
There's nothing written here. She's talking. She's not writing.
I thought his head was going to explode.
She's talking about aliens from fucking.
I don't know.
I'm
It's
not
12,000 years
talking
ago,
about
aliens.
aliens. I'm not talking about aliens.
You were just talking about the Anunnaki.
What makes you think they're
He
aliens?
said it this time.
That's what they're depicted as. Aliens or gods.
Well, how do you,
Choose.
what would make you think that they're from another
Okay,
world? What
so
would
when
make you think that we are not?
When they're described or drawn, they're about 8 to 12 feet tall, usually with wings. Some are drawn as animals with those same wings, with the same heads. They're not humans.
Okay.
That's
you do know in ancient Peru and in Nazca, they found mummies or skulls with elongated skulls.
Sure.
And, so the
When a
DNA
child
was
is
very
born-
similar.
When a child is born,
No. I'm not
yes.
talking about the African culture where they bind the child's head.
Mexico, too,
I'm
and
you
South
completely
America.
different because then it's scientifically proven. Even the size of the brain, the size of the skull itself. Is
Show me a
completely
science
different
paper
from-
that's published in, and I'm all for it.
You know
Okay.
what, guys? All I can tell you is that if you look at all these civilizations and the dying and the returning, right? Every civilization had somebody that died for the people and returned on the
Sure,
bed for the people,
yeah.
right? All it shows to me, and I'm oversimplifying this, I'm sure, but that's who I am. It's to show us that one, we all have or should have a higher spirituality, and two, every single one of us are connected. And
Sure.
if you start to pay attention to that,
All for that.
none of
Perfect.
this makes any difference.
Perfect.
And we have more ability than we give ourselves credit for.
Yeah, no,
Yes,
that I
will
agree
be flying home
wholeheartedly.
tonight.
So life is one big game of Kevin Bacon, is what you're saying?
Pretty much.
You too can manifest, and you can manifest, and you can manifest.
And you can say Anunnaki, and you can say Anunnaki.
Ding, 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 ding.
13.
Ding. My
14.
whole thing
15.
is that I'm just not so sure on my opinions where we went from 12,000 years ago to today. We just differ in the fact of where we think knowledge came from or where it went. That's all. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying my opinion just differs.
I still think there's a reason why they're not excavating in the ancient city of Eridu.
Well, because they'll probably get their heads cut off if they do.
But think about it. We hightailed it out of there really
See,
quick.
certain parts of the world, this is God. This is God, and anything you look for another God, we will kill you. That's part of that. That's that part of the world. Unfortunately, it's true.
I think the you can't go there is coming from this part of the world.
The scientific consensus is that Clovis people came a certain amount of thousands of years ago, and they
Across the Siberian, the Bering
suspiciously
Strait.
disappeared right around 12,800 years ago. So, but because they came 40 to 50,000 years ago and disappeared 12,800 years ago with that same flood, they don't look for them past a certain point. But yet, San Diego, they were actually plowing for a road, Alpha Highway, and they came across some 120,000-year-old mammoth bones that had some peculiar cuts and marks on it, not from an animal, but from what appears to be a human, most likely.
Yes.
And they won't even investigate it because, well, the Clovis came here 40,000 years ago, and there was nobody before that. So we're not going to investigate. And that's basically the problem that goes on over there, besides the religious stipulation that, anything you're looking for about other gods is heresy and you're getting your head chopped off. So it's not even, you can't even debate it with some of these religions. And that's part of the mainstream thing here. And part of the reason we don't have any of these answers is because our own people here in the United States, or even if you want to go just to the general, population of archaeologists, they won't even look into half this shit because, it's not the way we've written it for the last 30 years. It can't be. It can't be. It's in books. It's already done. We're not changing our minds. And that's why shock is being, harassed and being put out in a lot of places because nobody even wants to pay attention that, where it rains 1 inch per year, somehow there's 12,000 years of rain erosion. So, they won't
He's
even
also
look
the one
into
that
it.
discovered the phonetic language at the King's Chamber.
But we could play the game now.
Let's keep.
We
Okay.
could do that if you want.
What's the game?
You want to play the game?
Sure. To the audience.
It's time to play a game. So, oldest game in the world, 200 BC. A game was played in China. The Han Dynasty. Somebody could put it like right here and actually say what I'm meaning. It was created back in 200 BC. It's the oldest game in the world. It's still played today.
7 minutes in heaven?
Nope.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Get yours.
Gentlemen,
I'm sorry.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, man.
Hence why I said
Well,
I
no,
got the
they're
one you
brand
didn't
new.
put on.
brand new. Nobody wore them. Joe, all right, you guys are going to have to stand up at some point, too. Triple folded over your eyes.
It's a funny
You both
part.
have to stand up.
If we stand up, then we're.
You both have to stand
standing
up.
up. I mean-
Step back about 2 feet
Step back 2 feet. Oh,
and face
jeez.
each other. Okay, so you guys know the game called rock, paper, scissors, right?
Come
the
on.
oldest
you played that
game in the
ancient
world.
China.
Came out of
You know
China.
what, Joe? You are
200
a
BC.
.com. You're a .com.
You guys know how to use it?
I think mine was older.
www.show.com.
Joel,
We all know
Joel
the
looks
game.
like he's ready to be shot.
Okay? Okay?
It's a
You guys are ready to
twist.
play, right?
You hit me
And
with nuts.
this is about you guys wanting to tie me up and gag me for a show, right?
Uh-huh.
So we have to play the game because you want me to play your game, right? Ready? And here we go. Rock, paper, scissors. Let's go. Rock, paper, scissors, and shoot. Who wins, ladies?
Foo.
Fu wins?
Yeah.
Ready?
No.
Rock, paper,
I'm not doing this.
You gotta do it. You gotta do it. You gotta do it.
I'm gonna throw rocks at
How
you.
is this the oldest game in the world? They didn't play as in China. Rice, you're a
Yeah.
Now that we know what's going on, that's it. We can't play
Okay.
no more.
You gotta do it.
Over.
You gotta do it. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
There you go. Wait.
You can't tie me up.
I don't want to tie you up. That was his
How
idea.
about this? Since you want them to play that, when it's time to gag and tie you up,
I said anything goes. To get there, you gotta go through this. 3 wins. Come on. Joe, you got 2 so far. You got 2 more and you win. Come on.
All right.
No, close your eyes. Put your thing
Oh,
on.
I didn't think you saw that.
Of course I saw that. Rock, paper, scissors. Come on. Come on, face this way. No. Come on. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Come on. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. What is this?
That's me protecting.
you both won.
Come on. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. What do we got?
You know,
Take it off. Take it off.
oh my God.
And
And this
is
Dark
the
Odyssey.
living version of.
on that bombshell, we're going to end. Catch us next time. We will see us all. Thank you for joining us. And you can check us out when Brian gives the outro. Thank you. Good night.
Anybody know what a bonobo is?
Yes, it's an ape. Shut up, Tim.
This has been The Disagreement with Dark Odyssey. Thank you.
No.
Hello, and welcome to the end of the journey. We are on such social media platforms as Spotify, Apple Music, other things listed here.